Leader Fan Radio Network, and KFAN.com. 2 minutes and 17 seconds past the hour, 3 o'clock Central Standard Time. We welcome you back. It is a Monday edition, post-Thanksgiving edition of the Bumper to Bumper program on a pretty murky, pretty cloudy, kind of chilly, snowy earlier today. Got a little dusting of snow weekday afternoon here in the Twin Cities of Minneapolis and St. Paul. I am the host of the program, former Ink Stain Wretch newspaper, the Twin Cities. My name is Dan Barrero. I before E, except in Barrero. Guardsy is Gaard. He is the producer of the program. He is also the sidekick of the show. He is the radio voice of Golden Gopher women's basketball, sideline reporter, Golden Gopher football, that wrapped up the regular season in Madison, Wisconsin, with, I dare say, the easiest victory that you can ever hope to get in Madison from this point forward. I'll be surprised if it's ever that easy again, but maybe I'm overestimating their new head coach. More on that later. Bradshaw and Bryan KFAN text line is open at 64686. Hopefully you will join us and stay with us throughout a program that I believe is going all the way till 6:30. Is that correct?
It is not, because we have Wolves and Lakers on the Fan tonight at 7 o'clock.
Oh, and so Vikings programming.
We must clear out Vikings Rewind with Max Fuller.
Out of 6?
6:10.
Oh.
6:10.
Why can't we just make it an even 6?
I think we should. I'm sure Alan Horton could fill the time. Yeah. Maybe Max could go a little bit longer.
That's
but
true.
6:10 is going to be the plan tonight. And I think tomorrow night as well when we're at Toys for Tots.
Oh, that's Toys for Tots Day tomorrow.
Correct.
Do we know who we're going to get yet?
We are getting Josh Metellus at 4:47. 4:45.
The
Tellus with
Swiss
Metellus.
Army knife of a defensive back. Linebacker. Basically, he's the monster back of pro football.
You're going to run monster back by him, aren't you?
I'm going to have to, yes.
And he does all the social media videos where he goes through and asks teammates wacky things and gets wacky responses. He's very good at it.
We'll see if we can get some wacky responses out of him tomorrow.
So that's 4:45. Louis is going to be early tomorrow at 3:30.
From
I don't think he's
on
going to
location?
No,
he's not going to be there?
I don't think so, no. He told me he had to go way early. And I said, no problem, it works out. And then Seifert's going to stop by after Metellus.
Even better.
So we should be in good shape.
That'll work out very, very well, Davey. I mentioned off the top of the program that we are indeed your football is a funny game. And it is it not? We usually say that about baseball. But doesn't it feel like it applies to football right now, in all seriousness? Vikings will be hosting the Atlanta Falcons. Sunday, as far as I know, is still a noon start.
Yeah.
Sunday, high noon. And we all know, I think, what the ramifications are. The Atlanta Falcons starting quarterback used to play here. People used to happily plow Kirk Cousins' driveway. There were extra people. In fact, there were a couple of snowstorms where there was a traffic jam of people all raising their hands, volunteering to take care of his driveway.
His street looked like the last scene in Field of Dreams.
You are correct. He is the Atlanta QB. He went to Atlanta, left here to sign a, 4-year, $180 million contract. I think that was the number, in that range. Remember what he said about it? What was the quote? It's not about the money, it's about what the money represents. Yeah. Or did you say it was about the contract?
I think it's about the dollars.
The dollars.
Yeah, if we want to be specific.
What the dollars represent.
Yeah.
Yeah, correct. He went there. Meanwhile, we went out and we drafted a QB for the future. We finally did it. We moved up. We got a QB that we feel like we can invest in long term. He led the University of Michigan to the national championship. J.J. McCarthy is his name. And the Vikings had said, look, we see what some teams are able to do not having that big fat contract in front of the quarterback or spending all of that money at the quarterback position. We've done it for a while. It hasn't really gotten us, it kept us relevant, but we haven't really gone anywhere with it. We're going to get that albatross off of our backs. We're not going to play the game that Cousins' agent wanted. We're not going to give him the extra money. So we leave you in peace. You go to Atlanta. You go to Smyrna, Georgia. We're going to go this other route. But the Vikings also said, we need probably a bridge. Because, first of all, you couldn't have anticipated that J.J. McCarthy was going to get hurt in preseason. But beyond that, it was a feeling of, we don't necessarily want to throw him in there. So while Atlanta is basically turning over the city to their new quarterback, daily celebrations, pep rallies, banners being raised, he's the last link. He's all that the Atlanta Falcons need to be a contending playoff team. We say, we're going to go get Sam Darnold. And the town here yawned. People didn't even bat an eye. They said, well, okay. Well, Sam Darnold, really? You sure? Even for a year? Is this going to be like a holding pattern season? What are we really doing? I know he went to San Francisco and maybe he learned a few things with that fine organization playing behind the very successful Brock Purdy. Maybe maybe they helped him eliminate some of his bad habits in previous spots. But in all reality, what are we expecting to get? While Kirk Cousins got $180 million, Sam Darnold got $10 million. Look at the conditions of these two teams and these two quarterbacks right now. And tell me football is not a funny game. Atlanta comes to town, or will come to town, on a 3-game losing streak. They're relevant in their division only because it's a terrible division. They're 6-6. They're a 500 team. And there's even talk of Mike Penix. This could be the week. If not this week, in fact, I think the headline now is Cousins is playing for his job, or will be playing for his job at his former home in Minnesota at the People's Stadium.
Well, think about this headline 6-7 months ago that just dropped an hour ago at ESPN.com. Falcons Penix Jr. ready, but believes Cousins will rebound. Think about that.
Think about it. So, let's see. Vikings and Sam Darnold, they've won, or yesterday won, in improbable fashion again. They're 5th in a row. They are 10-2. That's 4 games better than Kirk Cousins and the Atlanta Falcons. Beyond that, in the last 3 games, Kirk Cousins has totaled 0 touchdown passes and 6 interceptions. Sam Darnold, any clue? 6 touchdown passes and 0 interceptions. Tell me football is not a funny game. That's how it feels. And that's going to be a large part of our conversation today. Are we even getting closer and closer to the point where the Vikings might actually have something called the Darnold dilemma related to the future? That will be part of the subject, among the subjects we'll discuss today. Lots of very good Vikings talking points to get to as well between now and, as Garzi says, now 6:10 this evening. Johnny Athletic's going to join at 4:02. Pay no attention to my tweet, which said much later. And Ben Lieber will join at 4:47. But right now, indeed, Cam Bynum, who joins us weekly, is on the Connecticut Water Systems hotline. Welcome back to the program. I don't know. I mean, I'm beginning to look at this club, Cam, and say, as painful as it seems to be at times, it looks like once again, yesterday at home, it's the old, we're going to find sooner or later, we're going to catch up with you. And that's sort of how the game played out.
Yeah, every single week, the past few weeks has been like that. And as the players, we don't obviously intend for these games to be this close because every single game we have the confidence to be able to play well against anybody. But us having to go against some adversity and just things happening in the games, whether it's just, just the ebbs and flows of the games, they just happen. And when we're down in the fourth quarter or the game is closer than we want it to be, we know that we have to all just stick together in those scenarios to be able to come out and win this game. And especially yesterday, I think that was a real test of who we are and what we can really get through as a team.
The interesting thing is defensively, in terms of obviously points allowed, you guys were in good shape almost start to finish, right? It wasn't like you were giving up touchdowns. You were giving up field goals. And it felt very much to me like at the half, Arizona should have felt like, man, we should be in a much better shape ahead in this game on the basis of their ability to move the ball. But what struck me, and I'm curious to get your view on it, was I felt like they tended to get very conservative as they got closer to your end zone, almost to the point where maybe that played into your hands a little bit. What did you think about, their difficulty, or do you think it was more they played it conservatively because of what you guys tend to do to them defensively?
I just think really it kind of felt like they're pretty conservative the whole game until they saw us in some of the man coverage looks where they took their chances on some over routes and stuff that's tough to guard when you're in man-to-man coverage just because they're running away from you. And it was still tight and contested coverage. So I feel like it felt like a really conservative game on their end. It's a lot of games, especially against us. If you put the ball in the air, a lot of times we tend to come down with a lot of them. And so a lot of it was quick game. We know the type of team that they are, especially in the pass game with Kyler. He gets the ball out of his hand quick or he scrambles. So that's why it kind of felt like a conservative game plan. But it was for sure one of those games where it felt weird because they're getting a lot of yards. We weren't getting a bunch of like big time stops early in the series, but we were able to stand up in the red zone and be able to hold them to field goals. And as a defense, technically that's a win. Every time you hold a team to a field goal, that's a series that you look at as a win for us. So it felt weird just giving up the amount of yards that we did, and just off of the little small stuff. They didn't have too many big plays, but just the little small check downs going for 10 yards. That kind of felt off, but it's hard to do that over a whole course of a game. And like we saw when in the fourth quarter when we needed it, we were able to take the ball when they put the ball in the air. And that's really been the tell of the whole season. And us as a defensive back core, when we're going against a team and they have to throw the ball and they're in known passing situations, that's when we eat.
Well, look at look both offensive. You go down 13 points late in the third, and from that point forward, Darnold leads you guys on 3 straight scoring drives: a touchdown, a field goal, a touchdown. You hold them, you force a field goal, and also have a couple of interceptions. So when it came to winning time, obviously that's when you guys were making all of the plays that needed to be made. Yet again, Kyler is an interesting cat to me because we talked about him last week. I thought he was doing a better job this year of not trying to always make the home run play, And you saw, I thought some of that during this game. But then again, probably the key possession right there on your 5-yard line. They get a false start. Very close call there, I thought. And then you do get good pressure on Kyler to where he gets caught for intentional grounding, and suddenly they're in a position where they're gonna probably have to be happy with a field goal rather than a chance to put the game away. It's 1st and goal at the 5.
Yeah, that's just one of those scenarios where it's the swing of a game so big because, like you said, getting down to the 5-yard line, that's almost not guaranteed touchdown, but that's a tough situation as a defense to be in without giving up points. And for us to be able to get that call, both of the calls, the intentional grounding, then the false start, that hurt them a lot just because we were able to hold them to a longer 4th down. Because if they would have just ran the ball on the 5, they probably would have went for it on 4th down, especially how the game has been going and no touchdowns yet. They would have probably got a little more aggressive there and trying to take a chance at the end zone. But us being able to push them back and them losing the yardage there, that changed the game. And that's one of those where that's a big win for us on defense to get down to the 5 and be able to march them back a little more to be able to force even a longer field goal, a tougher field goal to make.
Were you surprised at all, too? They drove late in the first half. They got it, I think, to, was it your 10 or your 5? They were in, obviously, easy field goal range, but they decided, and they were out of timeouts. So they made the decision. I thought they were going to clock it with like 10 seconds to go and maybe do the old, all right, we're going to take one shot at the end zone, make sure that we throw into the end zone, right? So there's no concern that the clock's going to run out. but they just decided to run it all the way down, I think, like 2 or 3 seconds and kick the field goal.
Down to 2 seconds.
Did that surprise you at all?
Yeah, it did, just because normally, especially two NFC teams, a solid team like them with a good record and quite possibly a playoff team, I would think they would be a little more aggressive in that scenario and go clock the ball and figure out a way to take a shot at the end zone. But I guess nothing's better than getting points on the board. So that was more of a guarantee for them to be able to get that guaranteed 3 points versus trying to take a shot and something goes wrong and then now the clock runs out and you make it all the way down there with no points. So I was surprised because I thought they would be a little more aggressive in that case of the game, but I also see why they're like, let's just settle for the 3 points.
Cam Bynum, Vikings safety, is our guest. Vikings win a close one again, hold on, or actually come from behind ultimately and knock off the Arizona Cardinals, preparing for the Atlanta Falcons this week. And when you called in, I was talking about just how fascinating this game of football can be, because your quarterback from last year, Kirk Cousins, goes to Atlanta, obviously a massive contract that ultimately your team decides, well, we're going to go a different direction. And he's had some great moments this year, but he struggled lately. 0 touchdowns, 6 interceptions his last 3 games. Meanwhile, you guys get Sam Darnold, who obviously had not been real successful elsewhere, gets another chance. And especially, I would say, the last several weeks, again in clutch time, the last 2 weeks especially, has been outstanding. And it just kind of reminds me how humbling this game can be. The big contract guy is now maybe playing for his job a little bit. Meanwhile, Sam Darnold is playing as if he is a veteran, accomplished quarterback who's found a home.
Yeah, it's cool to see, especially in Sam's case, being able to come from different scenarios and really later in his career now. I wouldn't say late in his career, but a few years later after a lot of things didn't go right, and for him to have the success that he's having, it's super cool to watch, especially I've been playing against and seeing Sam since high school, growing up in Southern California.
Right. Yeah.
And being able to just see him have the success and him be my teammate now, that's really cool and just happy for him. And then also in Kirk's scenario, for sure, just the leader that he was here, I always have that an endless amount of respect for him and as a friend and as a player. And I know what he's capable of, regardless of what's been happening lately. I know that he's a top quarterback and that he deserves everything that he has. And regardless of the struggle that he's had recently, we all know what Kirk is capable of. So regardless of what the tale of two tales has been saying lately and whatever stories are out there, we know that Kirk is a great quarterback, and that's something we have to prepare for.
What's the most important thing in your mind as a defensive back in dealing with Cousins? Now, being a former teammate, obviously you went against him in practice, but what for you are the priorities with Cousins to try to keep him contained and keep him under control?
Really just make sure we're playing the receivers tight and playing our zones, really disciplined in our zones, because we know that he's really accurate and can make any throw on the field. And being able to go against him in practice and seeing the type of balls that he can throw, we know that if we're not disciplined in our zone drops, in our distribution in our zones, and if we're in man coverage, if you're not tight on the body and you're not like right next to your man to be able to make a play on the ball, he can fit that ball in a window to throw his receiver open and put it in a perfect spot where only the receiver can get it. So it's really more of a problem, not a problem, but really more of a thing for us to focus on more than preparing for a quarterback. Because somebody like Kirk, we know that, like I said, he can make any throw. So it's all about the discipline and playing tight to your assignment.
You guys have been fairly healthy in the defensive backfield for much of this season, but you did face some injuries yesterday, obviously, that created some challenges. Gilmore, the veteran, who's obviously an all-time great defensive player, former defensive player of the year. You've been around him long enough to know how important he is to what you're doing. I think Harrison went out briefly as well. He came back. Gilmore, not so much. And you're throwing some people out there who don't have perhaps as much experience, like Moreau, I should say. And I'm curious to know do you say anything to Fabian? What do you try to do in a situation where, it's a tough challenge, man, for people to come off the bench who don't have that much experience to suddenly be in a spot where it looks like the other team's trying to pick on them?
Just knowing that we all practice and the way we practice, we're all on the same page. So no matter who's in, we know everybody will know their assignment and know what to do and how to do it. And especially in Fabe's case yesterday, to jump in middle of the game and have to play a lot of man coverage and be on an island a lot. And we all thought he did a really good job. They tried to throw the ball towards him a lot, and a lot of them were incomplete, and he was in perfect coverage. And just kudos to him for being able to hop in like that, cold, no warm-up, and be able to go in there and have a good game and have the game that he did with a few pass breakups. But that's just really the message of always being ready, and whether it's with knowing your assignments, physically being ready to go in there and play. But we had 87 snaps on defense, I think, yesterday, some high number like that, and have to jump in a game right there and have to do it in a close game, in a tight-fought game. So it's really just, you hear the phrase about just always staying ready so you don't have to get ready. And that was the thing for him yesterday, and just moving forward, especially being this late in the season. Things happen. It's a game of football, and it's hard to stay healthy. So that's the message we're preaching to every single person, just making sure that they're staying ready and knowing what to do no matter how low on the depth chart you are, whether you're a practice squad, if you're active, whatever. Most of the time, every single person that's suited up for a game will end up playing sooner or later.
With your victory yesterday, the top three teams in the division are now a combined 30-6, which is pretty much historic. It goes back at least to the realignment period. In terms of also point differential, it's the strongest for three teams in any division. Maybe even going back to the long before you were born, the NFL AFL merger that I am old enough to remember. It's pretty crazy stuff going on within this division, is it not?
Yeah, it is. Just looking around and seeing the talent in our division, it's crazy to see. Just knowing that as top three teams, we're all competing to have some of the best records in the league, and we're all in one division. So it's super competitive, but I think that builds us even more for the playoffs to be able to go against teams like this twice a year in the regular season. So no matter who we play in the playoffs, whether it's them or whether it's somebody else in the NFC, we'll be able to be ready for that competition, knowing that we've played some of the best just in the regular season.
You go week to week, obviously, because there's still plenty of season yet to go. But I'm wondering if when you guys are talking amongst yourselves, if at all the idea creeps in here that, you guys, let's just say for the sake of argument that you win the rest of your games, or even though they'll go 14-3, a tremendous record. But if Detroit keeps winning or stays ahead of you, you might have to play your first game on the road. Hell, it might even be in Atlanta, depending on how that division goes. That's got to be a bit of an odd feeling, too, to have that good of record potentially, because you're on pace for that, and not even being able to perhaps enjoy a home playoff game.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. And you said it's historic. I don't know if any team, I'm sure it's happened before, but it's rare that you'd have that good of a record and not be the number one team in your division. And it's just funny. But like I said, it just prepares us. We know no matter where all the seeding falls and how that works, we know wherever we play, we're going to be excited to go play, especially being in the playoffs and being able to get to that point. We're proud of ourselves, but we know that the job isn't finished. And even right now, we're not even thinking that far ahead. We just know that we have to win this week, and we have a lot more division games to be able to really have our destiny in our own hands in this the whole last part of the season is going to shape out.
Cam, were you able to watch the end of the Lions-Bears game?
Yes, I was.
So are you, again, because that's the team you're chasing, and you're saying, I got to believe you're going, the Bears have a chance to steal this thing. We have a chance to get even with them. Are you screaming? I'm wondering what you're doing. If you're yelling at the TV as the final seconds tick off, what's going through your mind?
I was for sure screaming at the TV. It was, I was in the ice tub with some teammates, and we were all, doing cold and hot tubs. And so doing our post-practice recovery, and everybody's in there screaming, like, what are you guys doing? What's happening? What's happening? And it was just crazy to see the game end like that. Yeah. And especially when they're that close to getting a win against one of the best teams in the league. And obviously we're hoping the Bears would win to help our standing in the division. So it was one of those games where it's the only time you'll root for another team.
Exactly right. Congrats on another victory, and thanks for the time as always. We'll chat next week.
That sounds good. Thanks you.
That's Cam Bynum, Vikings safety, on the Purple's come-from-behind victory. A lot of discussion, by the way, which we're going to have to get into. Apparently, there was booing at halftime. There was booing of a team that hadn't yet lost the game. Started the game with a record of, 9-2?
Yeah.
And there's some bitterness about the boos. It's come up in a couple of places. Apparently, you were among the folks booing at Target Center Wednesday night against Sacramento.
I was gone by that point.
Oh, you're already gone by that.
But my kid might have been.
So that's going to be a subplot today about what are the rules when it comes to appropriate booing. Can you ever boo a team that has won 9 of its first 11 games, including at that point 4 in a row? You say, come on, calm down. It's a long game. And see how it ended? They were just biding their time. They know what they're doing. Wolves might be another issue entirely. Bottom of the hour pause now. Pay no attention, as I said, to what I tweeted out, because Johnny Athletic is not going to join at 5:30. He's going to join at 4:02. So top of the next hour. We got a bunch of very good Vikings talking points to discuss today. Ben Lieber will also join at his customary 4:47 time. A week ago, I think Darnold in the extra period was 6 for 6 on the game-winning drive. Yesterday, down the stretch, basically after the Arizona had scored to open up the lead to 13, I think it was 12 for 17, 156 yards, 2 touchdowns. And
that's pretty good. That's pretty good right there.
Vikings in the game-winning scoring drive, obviously. Cousins threw one of his 4 interceptions late. And as I mentioned earlier, 0 TDs for the game and 4 picks as well. He is going to start. I mean, there's no reason, because I think the head coach said, it's an interesting quote, something to the effect of, hey, he's got us where we are here. And I'm thinking, okay, you're 6-6.
He did say that.
That was literally the quote, was it not?
That guy has got us to the point where we are 6-6 and in first place in the division. We've got everything in front of us despite what happened today. It's up to us to bounce back.
He would have been better off just saying got us first place in the division.
Yeah.
And to downplay the record, although the rest of us would have pointed out, but by the way, Coach, the record is a very mediocre 6-6. In fact, maybe we just get it out of the way early, because I did ask you for it. We'll see if we have it. Vikings talking points usually are about current Vikings, and we've got plenty, including plenty involving Sam Darnold. But given that it's, a big week for the Kirk Obos, who said you're going to rue the day you let him go, and that he was misunderstood here and underrated here and got criticized too often here, let's listen to a Kirk Cousins medley of how the afternoon went for him also on Sunday.
Bunch formation right. Kyle Pitts left, Bijan in the backfield. They take the snap. Looking right, throwing right, intercepted! Left sideline, 30, 20, Tar, Heeb, still, touchdown, Chargers! Cousins. Here comes Joey. Cousins climbs the pocket. Throws to the end zone. Intercepted! Welcome to the Bolts, Marcus May. Signed on Wednesday, interception on Sunday. What a play. Third interception thrown by Cousins in this contest. And the Bolts will take over at their 20.
Johnny on the spot. If it wasn't him, it was going to be Molden. They had that blanketed.
Atlanta has got a missed field goal and 3 interceptions today. And the Chargers have a fumble on their first drive that turned into the Atlanta touchdown. And now all of a sudden it's down to 4th and 12 at the 35. 3 to the right, 1 to the left. Snap. Chargers bring 4. Cousins sets, throws, intercepted. Derwin James at the 25-yard line. 4th interception thrown by Kirk Cousins today. 2 of them here in the last 9 minutes.
Yeah, tried to run Drake in the slot right up to the first down line and try to get him the ball before James, who's playing that middle safety position, can break on the ball. But if it's too far of a throw, James was able to beat the ball to the spot and picks it off.
Yep. Derwin James comes up with his first interception of the year and the 9th of his career. And Atlanta, with 1 timeout left, essentially has seen its 3rd straight loss sealed right here at home, 17-13.
I got to play better and take responsibility, and you go back and you're kind of have to watch it with a really critical eye and talk about, okay, how can I make sure this never happens again?
The pick 6 was one of the worst throws I've ever seen. Honestly, it's the old deal of I don't know. It didn't look to me like, well, he was behind one of those big linemen. He couldn't see it. It was bizarre, absolutely bizarre play. So he is in a rather significant funk. So while we're winning at home, albeit in very improbable fashion, they are losing at home to come back to the pack at 6-6. Still in the race because in that division I don't think you can be buried in that division. Right? I mean, it's just, that's sort of the nature.
It's really them in Tampa Bay.
Well, I guess now you're right, technically. Yeah. You're right.
But they're 6-6, too.
But they're 6-6.
They're not running away with anything.
No. So let me ask you something. At what point do we really have a Darnold dilemma we have to talk about? What is the point? I think I know the answer, and I think the answer for me is calm down.
Yeah.
As good as this has been lately, the way he's recovered from interception palooza, which Cousins seemed to sort of take the baton yesterday, we'll find out in January. That's what we'll find out. Then we'll have a much better idea. But I have to think again yesterday that the way he has comported himself, especially at the ends of games, you're going, this is more than you could have possibly hoped when you acquired this guy, I think.
Yes.
It's got, I mean, he's making, again, the last 2, and again, these aren't great teams, but Arizona's not terrible. Arizona's its own worst enemy, but they're not terrible. They'd won, I think, they lost to Seattle, but they'd won I think they'd won 4 of their last 5.
They had.
And they're not a bad team. They make some curious decisions, but then so do, the Bears coaches. But I mean, in all honesty, even I don't think this is one of the plays we have for talking points. The touchdown to Munt?
Yeah.
Part of what I had no idea what Darnold is, his awareness of pressure. I mean, the way he kind of pirouetted out of the way, kind of backed. I think he almost backed up to get out of the way of pressure to create more time, opening up the possibility that somebody's going to be as wide open as Munt was.
Yeah, defender fell.
Those plays, those should not be taken for granted. He's making, down the stretch, the last several weeks at least, almost every play you could make. And let's be honest about it. I think from a percentage standpoint, he's making more of them than Kirk Cousins would have in the exact same situation, in my view.
It seems like it. Can I one-up you on the plays?
Yeah.
Where I was fully aroused? Mm-hmm. The pass to Addison on the last drive. where he pumps it a couple times, he steps up in the pocket to the left and just fires it in there.
Flings it. Yeah.
That's big time.
It's big time throws.
That's really big time.
Yeah.
The throw to JJ, obviously, that's going to be one of them. Like, you're going to your best player, you got to fit it in, you have to have it. JJ comes back and gets it. But that play to Addison, that's just a confident dude that knows they've got to go down and score 7. And what does KOC always say? Be at your best when your best is required. To answer your question on when do you have a dilemma, I still don't think you have a dilemma, because I still think if he keeps playing like this, he's going to get paid. And this whole blueprint that they've tried to unwind the last few years was to rid themselves of contracts like this. Now, Kwesi being Kwesi and a mind for numbers, did he account for this possibility? Did he account for the fact that JJ might be injured or might not be good and Darnold might be great and financially they can make it work? Because I did think it was interesting what Darnold said yesterday, which I hadn't heard, to Pam Oliver.
We like it here.
Did you catch that? Where he said, there's no place I'd rather play. There are no coincidences. Is he saying that to plant the seeds?
Well,
and what does that mean?
Well, it won't mean much unless we find out that his agent is so committed to what he says he's committed to that he's willing to take a hometown discount to stay.
Another 1 year, $10 million?
That's when we'll know. Well, not that much of a discount, but one that would, let's say 1 year, $20 million.
Yeah.
Then would you play? But you're not going to probably be able to. That's the question. Can he possibly?
I don't think he can
go with that. His agent's not going to counsel him to do it. If he can go someplace else and get, I don't know what he's going to get. He's not going to get Cousins money.
Probably
but he's
not.
going to get, I don't know, what is he going to get? Can he get 30? Can he get 25?
I bet he could.
For 4 years? I don't know
We'll
what the
figure out
right
who needs
number
what.
is. But again, he's 27.
I know. He's got probably 5-6 years left if you think about it.
And he moves well. He's not, I wouldn't call him an athletic quarterback, but he's sneaky athletic in his ability to get away from. Now, he got sacked plenty.
Yeah.
And he wasn't perfect. He made a couple of reads that made no sense, a couple of decisions that made no sense, but there's no arguing with the way he's finishing games. I mean, this is pretty close to flawless down the stretch of the last several ball games. Let's get caught up, get some more talking points, and some of your texts. My gut tells me that I prefer Canada Dry Ginger Ale to Schweppes. I have a Schweppes can in my hand, and what is it about the mini cans that I'm obsessed with? If I get like a 12-ounce can, I hate looking at it.
The regulation size?
The regulation size. I like these mini cans. And ultimately, I always need 2 of the cans. So why wouldn't it be the 12-ounce would be more convenient? I don't know. It's all psychological.
Maybe you like feeling bigger.
Well,
maybe it makes you feel like a giant.
That'll be on the Power Trip Morning Show, that's for sure.
Like Rudy Gobert, that's what he feels like with a regular can.
Yeah.
Now, he might drop it. If it's thrown to you. I don't know why I would say that. I like Rudy, unlike some of his teammates.
You're supposed to be defending him from the cheap shots.
I know.
The Kirk Obos, their feelings are hurt.
Are they triggered?
I've heard one. Now, this is James from St. Louis Park. Kirk led the league in fourth quarter comebacks 2 years ago.
Dan.
So, no, Darnold isn't more clutch. That was 2 years ago. Were we not talking about the current condition of the Atlanta Falcons offensively and the way the quarterback is playing now and how Darnold is playing now? That doesn't mean a whole hell of a lot from 2 years ago. What did the team do 2 years ago? I don't even remember. What did we end up doing 2 years ago?
We ended up getting Daniel Jones a big contract, and Brian Daboll won Coach of the Year somehow over KOC.
We're happy for you. I don't know what to... I'm not ready to give Sam Darnold a lifetime contract, but I'm trying to give him his due. He's played far better overall, especially in most of the clutch situations, than I ever dreamed that he would. Even for the 1 year. I didn't see this coming. I don't know how anyone could have seen this level of efficiency. You mentioned the throw. I just saw somebody just had a highlight of it where he drove the ball down to Addison over a defender, had to be perfectly placed, but he had to have some juice on that ball. He's had so many of those sorts of passes that he's thrown where you go, that's just big league. It's a professional pass that not every quarterback can make. Now, what he has to prove, obviously, is that he can consistently do it when you play better teams, when you get into December and you get into January. All that stuff is true. But I think only a fool would suggest that he is not playing very well. And again, better than I thought that he could.
Can I ask you another who would have thought that question?
Yes.
Who would have thought that on December 2nd, you may be more concerned about Aaron Jones handling the ball than Sam Darnold? Because he's been the turnover issue. I know that's a talking point we're going to get to, but he's the one that's kind of hurt them more. Now, Darnold had that stretch that we all chronicled, that we all talked about, where it seemed like the JJ ratio was in play. You're seeing that balanced out a little bit. But lately, Darnold has had more throws that were dropped that were perfect, whether it was Jones or I think Naylor, that was going to be the dagger against Tennessee.
Right.
Where that would have even made his numbers look even better by comparison to what they are now. And as they are now, they're pretty damn good.
Undeniable. You're exactly. And we have an Aaron Jones talking point, which we'll get to later. Johnny's going to join us at the top of this hour. Pro Football Talk guy, I don't know if this was Florio or not, clearly was trolling yesterday. He was being satiric.
Must be Florio.
When he sent out this tweet, Boo Birds are out in Minnesota. How soon can they get Daniel Jones ready? That's him playing. There's no question that's just him playing. But somebody from something called Vikes Journal bit, hey, idiot, Sam Darnold's the only reason we won the last 2 weeks.
People are in their feelings.
They can't.
Sometimes.
Yeah, they can't help it. It's we all get caught sometimes, but it was very clearly satiric. But it's a good entree into the propriety of booing. What is apparently we've got. In fact, our next guest is one of them. We got Seifert musing out loud. He'll be with us tomorrow from Shields for our Toys for Tots event. Musing and kind of almost seemingly bothered by the fact that the Vikings got booed as they left the field in the first half. Johnny, bitter at how early the booing took place in the game you were at, right?
Wednesday night,
the Sacramento game.
Yep.
So we're in that tricky mode of when the hall monitors start, deciding it's okay for you to boo or it's too soon for you to boo. I'm not real comfortable with that, with the hall monitoring. We'll see what Johnny has to say about it. We'll certainly talk Wolves with him. The Wolves are back in action tonight against the Lakers at home. That's why we are out early. Vikings programming, then followed by on the fan, Wolves against the Lakers. And we'll get his reaction to, again, another weird Vikings game where I did think, I went into the game thinking they were going to cover. But in the third quarter, felt like, I felt like they were in trouble, but I still felt like I can't say they're dead because Arizona obviously could not ever provide who's the Packer play-by-play announcer?
Wayne Larrivee.
The Wayne Larrivee dagger. They couldn't come close. They did finally get a touchdown in the second half to make it 13, but there was too much messing around in the red zone, despite the fact that they did move the ball extremely effectively. So all of that is coming up. If you have questions for Johnny, you can also contribute via the Bradshaw and Bryant KFAN text line at 64686.